loves it when I get the drop on it.
I hate it when he gets the drop on me.
Over the course of the past 30 years, we have gotten many Spider-Man games, but I feel like they really didn't start becoming popular until the release of the 3D games. The year is 2000, and coming off a 4-year hiatus with no Spider-Man games, it was time for Spidey to come back and deliver a whole new experience. Spider-Man 1 for the PlayStation 1 was developed by Neversoft and published by Activision. The game was first announced on December 2, 1998, and used the same engine as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Both Spider-Man 1 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater were developed by Neversoft and released only weeks apart from each other, with Spider-Man releasing on September 1, 2000, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 releasing on September 20, 2000. As the first Spider-Man game to be created in 3D, this action-adventure game was created to give the players the most authentic Spider-Man experience possible. The devs tried to push the limit of what they could achieve on the PS1 by making the player really feel like they were Spider-Man. This involved creating realistic web swinging and the ability to crawl all over individual rooms.
Well, it was the day we got Spidey. You could jump off a building, hit your swing button, swing to a building, crawl up, go over nice complicated surfaces, pop down, and then start fist fighting with a bad guy that's try to ruin the world. And we just looked at each other, all laughed and smiled and said, we got something. It's really fun, even just to move the character around.
It was apparent that Neversoft was committed to making the best Spider-Man game ever up to that point. It was willing to do anything to reach that goal, and I think it's safe to say that they nailed it.
Technology is the light that will cut through the darkness. When humanity conforms to a single truth, a truth based in technological progress and scientific method, we will be unstoppable. I, Dr. Otto Octavius, vow as a scientist and businessman that my duties to humankind will be fulfilled. Thank you. Thank you.
The story for this game starts out with a reformed Dr. Otto Octavius holding a presentation at the Science Expo 2000, but the event ends in chaos as a Spider-Man imposter appears and steals the equipment off the stage. It's made clear that the Spider-Man that stole the equipment is an imposter as we see Peter run into Eddie Brock, who is there taking pictures for the Daily Bugle for J. Jonah Jameson, giving us 100% confirmation that someone is impersonating Spider-Man. Brock then becomes enraged after the fake Spider-Man breaks his camera and gives in to the Venom symbiote, swearing he will get revenge against Spider-Man no matter what.
You won't be able to get a job taking wedding pictures in Siberia!
I tried to fight it. I can't fight him anymore! Again. Innocence falls prey to the evil of Spider-Man. Rest easy, Brock. Venom is here. And if it's the last thing we ever do, Jameson and the insect are gonna pay.
As we continue on, the actual Spider-Man is being hunted by the police, as they think he's responsible for the theft at Octavius' event. We then see two figures release fog from a hidden base that covers the city streets. Even though it's just fog, you can't fall into it or else you would die instantly. Maybe it would have been better to call this poison, as it would make more sense if you were to die when you entered it than fog would, but who knows. I played this game as a kid but could not remember how the fog actually got into the streets to begin with, so it was nice to finally see how the fog appeared in the first place. Now we begin the first mission in the game.
Welcome, true believers and newcomers alike. Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee here. Once again, we find our hero Peter Parker, better known around the world as the Amazing Spider-Man, in a heap of trouble. But this is just the beginning, Spidey fans. So get ready for a true superhero action thriller, packed to the brim with thrills and chills, twists and turns, more supervillains than you can shake a web at, and of course, non-stop web-slinging, wall-crawling action.
We then meet with Black Cat, who if you look closely is not wearing her mask. In addition, in this game, Peter is married to MJ, nixing Spider-Man and Black Cat's potential relationship. This mission has you learn the basic mechanics of the game and has you swing over to the bank to stop a robbery by the Jade Syndicate. This mission is my most vivid memory of my time playing this as a kid on the PlayStation 1. To my surprise, the wall crawling was surprisingly fluid, as you crawled all over the ceiling and then would drop down to get the jump on enemies. When you start to get low on health, there are these floating white spiders with a cross that would refill your health. In the top left corner, you can see your player icon health bar and the amount of web fluid you would use along with the amount of canisters you had left. As you use up the web fluid, the number of canisters you had would decrease. You could refill these canisters by finding floating blue spiders scattered across the area, similar to the white health spiders. I'm going to assume that the amount of drops that can be found on each mission depend on the difficulty you're playing on, as I didn't test playing on multiple difficulties, but it would make sense if that was the case. So if you're playing on kid mode, the drops would be everywhere, but if you're on hard, then the drops would be much more scarce. The layout of the bank was done really well, as it wasn't hard to figure out where to go next after clearing out a group of enemies. Over the course of this mission, you save multiple civilians who are being held hostage by the Syndicate, while still learning some moves that you can use during combat. The thugs that you find inside the bank could perform physical attacks, and some of the Jade Syndicate men actually have weapons that they would use against you. Towards the end of the mission, we stop a bomb from exploding by beating up some guards, grabbing and throwing the bomb into a safe. This was a great first mission as it showed you everything you needed to know so you could complete the later missions, because, believe it or not, this game is harder than it looks.
Not this time, guys. Jonah, I have shots to the bank robbery.
Parker, shut up and dial 911. Scorpion's here, and you have to...
Uh-oh, Spidey. Scorpions had it out for old J. Jonah Jameson from day one, blaming Jameson for being stuck in his scorpion suit. Spidey had better get there quickly, or JJJ may end up in the obituaries of his own paper.
After stopping the bank robbery, we discovered that Scorpion is trying to kill J. Jonah Jameson, the only person he hates more than Spider-Man, as he provided the funding for the experiment that caused him to turn into the Scorpion in the first place. To start off, this mission has you swinging from building to building to try and reach Jameson before Scorpion kills him. This isn't hard at all, as you don't even have to fight the enemies. You can just run right past them as you traverse each rooftop. Once we arrive at the Daily Bugle, we have our first boss fight, the Scorpion.
Listen, Gargan, it's a new millennium. Lots of high-tech. There may be some way we can get you out of that suit.
You put me in this suit. Now I'm going to make you pay.
Get over it, Gargan.
You ruined my life, so now I'll end yours.
You fight inside a room with Jameson hiding in the corner, as you are tasked with defeating Scorpion, but also protecting Jonah from damage, as he has a small health bar that will lower if he takes any hits. This fight isn't hard, as Scorpion mostly just uses his stinger that will punch you if you try and attack from close range. He's vulnerable to Spidey's webbing, so it's easy to wrap him up and just punch away. Even though he's easy, you can't be careless, as he does counterattack often, which can knock you down instantly. If you just be on guard for the counterattacks and keep away from Jameson, this fight should be a breeze. After defeating Scorpion, Jonah, being the ungrateful man he is, calls the police on us and we flee the scene.
I don't know what you're trying to pull by saving my life, but it won't work.
Oh, you're just too clever for me, JJ.
There he is, officers! The man behind the Science Expo heist! Shoot him now! Shoot him!
JJ, you are out of the wheel. I mean it this time.
Then we meet Daredevil, who thinks we could be guilty, but we convince him otherwise, and then he leaves the rooftop. After having fought Scorpion, this game was starting to feel like I was playing the animated Spider-Man cartoon that was popular during the 90s. Even the character designs of all the heroes and villains look similar to the game interpretation of them. For example, let's compare the Daredevil in this game to the Daredevil in the animated show. As you can see, the suit he wears is very similar to the show, almost to the point that it feels like it was just copied straight from it. Having watched the entire series, and then seeing those same characters portrayed in the game, just added to the realness of the game, even though all of these characters are fiction. Immediately after that, we're ambushed by a police helicopter, leading to a really long chase sequence. This chase sequence definitely caught me by surprise. It just felt like the cops would never stop chasing me, as every building I swung to, the helicopter was right there. This whole section required you to focus, as there were missiles being shot at you alongside enemies that appeared on every rooftop. Then to make matters worse, you have to climb up this building and follow a certain path to avoid the gunfire and explosions. I died on this section more times than I would like to admit. Although, to think that all of this would be included in a PS1 game was definitely unexpected. But anyways, we finally escaped the police and were reunited with Black Cat and start the third mission.
Pay for that tower? Uh-oh, the spider sense tingling. One more step and it's a load of web fluid sticking you to that wall.
Well, it's not the most romantic proposition I've ever had.
Black Cat? Oh, I'm so glad it's you.
Good to see you too, big boy, but you got a problem.
This mission starts off with Black Cat telling us that Rhino is wreaking havoc at the power plant and Venom has captured Mary Jane in an attempt to lure Spider-Man out to fight. Black Cat tries to convince Peter that she can take Rhino alone, but Peter disagrees. I thought this was a cool little nod to the comics, where there are moments that Peter realizes it would be safer for both him and Black Cat if he would fight the supervillain alone. After some debate, we decide to fight Rhino first at the power plant. Once we arrive, you can see a helicopter flying away with some sort of valuable tech, showing that the time Spider-Man and Black Cat took figuring out who to fight first actually mattered, since it allowed the goods to be stolen. Before we even start the fight, we see Black Cat get absolutely rammed by Rhino, taking her out the fight before it even started. The Rhino boss fight is a little bit harder than the Scorpion fight, but not by much. You fight him in this open area that has these electrical boxes in the middle. If you bait Rhino into charging into these boxes, they electrocute him and cause a lot of damage. Just continuously get Rhino to charge into the boxes and you'll have this boss finished in no time. One funny little detail I noticed is that when Rhino runs into a generator, his character icon changes face to show he is getting shocked. After the fight, an injured Black Cat is taken by the paramedics, but it's shown that the drivers are mysterious figures, who seem to be taking her somewhere else other than the hospital.
Help me. They're not really paramedics.
Perfect. Perfect.
Well, that's my story, Johnny.
Looks like you're in a lot of trouble. You'll find Venom.
But how? Venom is invisible to my spider sense.
Knowing your luck, Venom will find you. Have faith,
After we
Spidey.
leave the scene, we meet Human Torch, who gives us a little pep talk about finding Venom so we can rescue MJ. Moments later, Venom appears and leads us on a chase throughout the city. This chase sequence really just showed how fast Venom was. All this time we were swinging from building to building and it felt like we were going fast, but then Venom just shows up and makes it obvious that we're not that fast. But I digress. We continue chasing Venom and end up fighting him in the back alley right behind the Hellfire Club, a nod to the social club for the wealthy and those with high social status, whose purpose was to gain power through their political and financial influence rather than traditional means of conquest, a subtle yet cool nod to the group that could easily be missed. This fight wasn't difficult as all Venom does is vanish around the alley, and once you find where he is, you can just start punching away, and after doing enough damage, he flees to the sewers. Once we got to the sewers, I knew instantly what kind of enemies we would encounter. Contrary to the typical thugs we've been fighting so far, littered throughout the sewers are lizards. These lizard men pop up constantly and can perform physical attacks while spitting acid on you from long range. The platforming in the sewers is well done, as you have to use Spider-Man's reticle to aim and swing from pipe to pipe to avoid falling into the water below. As you venture deeper into the sewers, the game included the one thing I was hoping it wouldn't, and that was a maze. Eventually, Venom sends you down this path that has openings on the left and right, as you must figure out where to go to find the room that contains MJ. Honestly, I don't know how I figured this out in a decent time, but as I made my way towards the end of the path, I run into Lizard, who is imprisoned in his own lair. Lizard then gives you instructions on where MJ is located. He says them pretty fast, so if you're not paying attention, you will definitely get lost, as there's no way to get him to repeat the dialogue. Maybe if you die in return, but I don't think that would work.
She's in the lair at the end of the maze. There's only one way to get there. Go back along this tunnel and cross over 2 waterways. At the 3rd waterway, go right. Follow it around the corners, past past the machinery, skip the first tunnel intersection, then go right at the next one. You will find the woman there.
Help! Is anybody there? Help me!
Mary Jane!
Please!
Hey, you made it!
Venom!
I'd let you see your wifey poo, but she's in the bath right now. So, what do you say, Spunky? Let's finish this!
Anyways, we finally find MJ as she is submerged in a cage underwater. Here's when we fight Venom, and have to keep MJ from drowning in the process. This fight doesn't require much skill, as Venom just teleports back and forth between the switches, and once you know where he's going to teleport to, you can just beat him up quickly. Shooting the switches first, then fighting Venom is the strategy I used in this fight, and I was able to beat him in just minutes. After defeating Venom and rescuing MJ, we convince the symbiote that we've been framed, and are purposely being pitted against each other. After some consideration, Venom decides to join us, and we head back to the Daily Bugle to look for the clues surrounding the imposter's identity.
I need Jameson's help on this. We're going to the Bugle.
Jameson! We hate Jameson.
You bonehead. We're not going to see Jameson. We're going to use his computer database.
Ooh, are we gonna surf the web?
Let's just go, okay?
Moments after arriving at the Daily Bugle, Venom senses Carnage, his symbiote offspring who has known to have been bonded with Cletus Cassidy, the infamous serial killer who escaped Riker's island prison. Having sensed the presence of Carnage, Venom jumps and leaves Spider-Man to go find him.
Stop him.
Now?
Yes, now. We have no choice.
Wait, make more noise. I'm only breaking and entering here. Spider sense tingling. Now what? Spidey, whoever's behind all this. Got symbiotes.
Meanwhile, we discover that the building is infested with symbiotes. To deal with these monsters, we have to find and destroy generators that are producing these symbiotes. A cool mechanic that was introduced at this point in the game was the flammable web fluid. Up to this point, we have only had normal webs that we could use to web up the enemies. But if you picked up this red spider, it would make that fluid flammable, making it really easy to kill the symbiotes that were roaming around the building. Normally, the symbiotes would take a handful of hits to go down, but with the flammable web fluid, they would die almost instantly. Once we destroy the symbiotes, we cleanse the building of them and rescue the hostages that were trapped. After destroying the generators, we finally discover the identity of the Spider-Man imposter, Mysterio. This brings us to the Mysterio boss fight.
I've wanted to shut that mouth of yours. Finally, that time is upon me.
At last, I will crush you once and for all! Now, little spider, you will die!
Is it too late for us to be friends?
I thought this fight was the second toughest fight in the game. Mysterio uses his usual tricks to grow super big. To defeat him, you had to use your web shot, or what I like to call web kamehameha, on the power nodes that were all over his body. What made this difficult was that he would change his attacks based on the level of the ground you were standing on. So if you're on the very bottom, he would just constantly stomp you. If you went a floor above, he would then summon objects out of thin air that would materialize and deal damage if you didn't avoid it. The worst attack he performed was this swiping grab that comes from the left side of your screen. It's easy to dodge, but the swipe is surprisingly fast, forcing you to time your jumps correctly. After taking out all the power nodes on his body, the second phase starts. Up to this point, none of the bosses even had a second phase, so you already know I died a couple times. During this second phase, the floor has a blue circle around it that would flash with electricity that would harm you if touched. While trying to avoid the electricity, you had to web shoot his helmet. After you cause enough damage, Mysterio is finally defeated. After his defeat, Mysterio informs us that his bosses plan to infest the whole city with symbiotes, and the fog that covers the city serves as an alert for the symbiotes that would get the citizens ready for symbiosis. After receiving the intel from Mysterio, we start the last mission in the game.
I'm here, Frank. What's up?
Spider-Man's here, Microchip.
What range?
100 yards, maybe. Easy shot.
Very funny, Frank.
Huh? He spotted me, but how could he? I lost him.
What happened?
He took out my scope.
Hey, tough guy. Sorry about that expensive lens, Punisher.
Something tells me we have the same objective here.
The information we received led us to a warehouse which was hiding in an underground base, which was the source of where all the symbiotes were coming from. We run into the Punisher on our way to the actual warehouse called Warehouse 65. With his help, we were able to infiltrate the base. Once we're inside the base, we find that Black Cat has been trapped here after being kidnapped in the ambulance. In order to save her, we have to go to multiple rooms and pull levers that will close off the vents that are releasing the fog into the city. This wasn't hard, as you just had to go to each room and press square. It required pretty much no skill at all.
Listen, whoever you are, no one can control the symbiotes. No one!
I need not control the symbiote, Spider-Man.
Doc Ock?
Once we rescue Black Cat and destroy some more generators, we discover that the mastermind behind this entire plan is Otto Octavius himself, with the help of Carnage. Doc Ock explains that he tricked everyone into thinking he was reformed so he could rule the world by making everyone bond with the symbiote. Seconds later, Venom appears and fights Carnage, leaving us to fight Doc Ock one-on-one.
Ooh, I smell bad, symbiote, and it ain't me!
Bring it on, Grandpa!
Alone at last.
Let us end this, Spider-Man.
I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but this boss fight wasn't too hard either. Dr. Octopus stands inside an electric barrier that can only be taken down by webbing up the generators that were powering it. This fight can be a little tricky, as while you're waiting for the switches to drop down, it will use his tentacles to take swipes and jabs at you. If you don't pay attention, you will get hit by these a lot. Once you remove his barrier, you can just punch and kick away, lowering his health. Rinse and repeat this process of taking down the barrier and then inflicting damage, and Ock goes down pretty quickly. After defeating Doc Ock, we see Venom get KO'd by Carnage, making us fight Carnage by ourselves.
Wake up, Rock. What'd you say?
This Carnage boss fight is probably the hardest fight in the game. How to defeat him is not hard, you just need to get him in the area that contains the sonic waves, but actually getting him in there takes a little bit of skill, as he constantly moves around, and then when you close the distance, he will perform some physical attacks. Let's say you land some punches and kicks. Those do cause some damage, but it's minimal. In order to get him trapped in the sonic wave area, you need to punch or kick him into it, which is tough. The camera is focused on you so you can hit Carnage, but as you try to angle it so Carnage's back is to the sonic waves, he will either move or it just won't work. What I ended up doing was just getting him stuck on the wall and then just hitting him until his health slowly went down to zero. It was a cheap way to win the fight, but it worked. But of course, the game isn't over there. The Carnage symbiote then leaves Cletus Cassidy and merges with Dr. Octopus to create Monster Ock.
I've met anyway. Take a breather, Spidey. It's over. Well, just another day in the life. Whoa! What the? Is that Ock?
Now we arrive at this heart-racing chase sequence. In order to escape, we must run away from Monster Ock while ascending each floor of the base. This chase section is hard as the camera is angled so you're running towards it, but the hallways still move in different directions. And to make matters worse, you have to zip up to get to the next floor, and if you're too slow webbing up, Monster Ock catches you and it's game over. This took a couple tries, as trying to figure out the fastest way to maneuver each hallway was definitely a challenge. We finally escape the base, which is blown up, taking Monster Ock with it in the explosion. To everyone's surprise, the Carnage symbiote saved Ock from dying in the blast, as he is grabbed by Spider-Man and we are saved by Captain America, who was called by Black Cat and Venom as the Carnage symbiote escapes.
It's a good thing Black Cat gave me a call, son.
Looks like just in time.
Hey, Spidey, can you get us Captain America's autograph?
Oh, brother.
After this, we see Spider-Man playing cards with Daredevil, Punisher, and Captain America, while Black Cat and the Human Torch are seen dancing nearby. A cool detail I noticed is that if you look at the bottle Daredevil is drinking, it's called superhero juice. Meanwhile in prison, Scorpion makes fun of all the villains we faced as he realizes that they all fought and lost to Spider-Man no matter what they did. The most obvious thing I noticed was the poster on the wall of a woman with a fishbowl on her head instead of a normal woman, and the bandages Mysterio had wrapped around his face. As Doc Ock bangs his head on the jail bars, this story finally reaches its conclusion, setting us up for the next game, Spider-Man 2: Enter Electro. This sequel was made not by Neversoft but by Vicarious Visions and would eventually release in 2001. Overall, this story was fantastic. From the simplicity of the missions to the boss fights, every new mission was intriguing and felt fresh. This game did a great job of creating an exciting yet engaging story that introduced new characters along the way. What I enjoyed the most was that this story never took itself too seriously. Obviously there were important things going on, but at the end of it all, it just felt like your classic animated TV show ending. I wish more games released today that had a simple but fun story like this.
The Venom Marathon continues on the biggest TV in New York. We're shouting out to the whole big rotten apple here, people.
Sad thing is, he'll probably get his own talk show for this.
If there's one thing that stands out to me more than the story, it's the voice acting. Every person who had a voice role in this game just crushed it. It gave this layer of authenticity to the game that made every conversation feel believable, like these are lines that these characters would actually say, if they were real. I thought I would take just a little bit of time to show the faces behind some of the characters we heard throughout the story.
Being Spider-Man has given me a lot and taken a lot away, but one thing never changes. My responsibility to use my powers for others before myself, no matter what the cost.
Rino Romano, who had voiced Spider-Man and Peter Parker, would also be the voice for the same characters in Spider-Man Unlimited, which aired in 1999.
In another context, the idea of a goat man dressed like a doctor might be amusing.
Who dares? Face me, coward! Face a worthy foe. Spider-Man?
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who voiced Dr. Octopus, also voiced Alfred in the animated Batman series that aired in the late 90s.
Rough night of crime fighting, sir?
Very.
Well, you'll be happy to know I've drawn you a bath. Whenever you're ready.
What's the deal, Alfred?
I said I drew you a bath, sir.
Your guess is as good as mine. The guys in the ambulance must have drugged me because the next thing I knew I woke up here. You gotta get me out of here.
Jennifer Hale voiced Black Cat not only in the game, but in the Spider-Man animated series that aired in 1995 as well.
I knew you'd come, Spider.
Who are you?
Just a stray black cat. Silly Spider. Cats always land on their feet.
Behind you.
You say?
Dee Bradley Baker voiced a handful of characters including Carnage, Rhino, J. Jonah Jameson, Daredevil, and Lizard, and has had a plethora of roles including voicing Dad in the cartoon Cow and Chicken.
We're all gonna die!
Every man for
It's a good thing Black Cat gave me a call, son.
Looks like just in time.
Hey, Spidey, can you get us Captain America's autograph?
Oh, brother.
Darren Norris voiced Venom, Mysterio, Scorpion, Punisher, Human Torch, and Captain America, and would have other voice roles like Jack Smith in American Dad.
Not taking Stan on a mission. You're taking him on a jewel heist.
Keep your pretty mouth shut and everything'll be Punky Brewster.
Dad, you're not looking!
Look, either you tell Stan the truth or I will.
All right, Francine. This won't be easy, but I'll tell him. First, I'm gonna need a shot of Dutch courage. Ha! Straight to the brain!
Stan Lee, the co-creator for Spider-Man, was the narrator for the game as you would hear him during certain missions.
Oh boy, Spidey fans, Black Cat is out. Rhino's looking to take Spidey down as well.
I just wanted to shed some light on this amazing voice cast who really brought these characters to life and gave them the personalities they needed to make this game great. The music in this game was top-notch as well. Every time you would fight an enemy, you would hear some sort of fighting music like this. Each time you fought a new opponent or entered a new area, the theme that played fit perfectly and added to the overall atmosphere of the game. Another one of my favorite tracks was during the bank heist. The music in this game, combined with the voice acting, helped create a memorable audio experience that enhanced important story moments and action sequences. This game included a lot of unlockables that could be accessed after completing the story or by completing any of the other game modes. For a PS1 game, this game offered a lot more content than some games do today, which is actually crazy to say. It included a character viewer that had information on every character that was in the game. What's cool is that each one was described briefly by Stan Lee.
Now reformed, Dr. Otto Octavius is using his scientific knowledge for the good of humanity. One of Parker's photojournalistic rivals, Brock blames Parker for his bad reputation as a reporter. Add one alien symbiote, and you've got Venom.
In the training mode, you had 5 different kinds of training to choose from. The first was time attack, where you had to eliminate as many people as possible in the selected time. This was fun as you did nothing but beat up enemies as fast as possible. The combat in this game is somewhat addicting, so you can easily spend a lot of time trying to achieve a high score in this mode. The second was survival mode, where you had to dodge opponents for as long as possible. I think this is one of the harder modes as the game throws a lot of enemies at you, and many of them have guns, making it tricky to try and dodge everyone. It's a good thing you can jump high, because that definitely came in handy during this challenge. Out of all the challenges, this is the one I wouldn't see myself coming back to very often. The third challenge was called speed training, which had you using your webs to swing to the destination as fast as possible. This time challenge was really fun, but had the potential to be even better. If you had the ability to run up walls or just move faster, rather than getting stuck to a wall and having to climb up it in order to go forward, this mode would be so much better. But for its time, it's still enjoyable. The fourth of the training modes was called Target Practice, which gave you good guy and bad guy targets to shoot with your web, with you gaining points for each foe webbed up. This was my favorite of the training modes as it's really fun to try and shoot the targets, but avoid hitting the wrong ones. It reminded me of the gun courses from Jak 2 and 3, where they had a similar system, in which you had to shoot the enemies, but not the civilians. The last of the training modes was called Item Collection, which had you collecting the pickups as quickly as possible. The item collection challenge is easy, but you have to move faster than you realize, as all the pickups aren't just right in front of you. There are some high and down below, and in order to reach those, you have to collect the easy ones first. If you're someone who enjoys getting collectibles during the story, then this challenge is definitely for you. There was a comic collection section that contained all the comic book covers you could find during your playthrough of the game. It was pretty cool to see some of these comic covers as they recognize iconic moments during Peter Parker's journey as Spider-Man. I hope that we get to see even more Spider-Man stories be adapted into some sort of live-action version. Seeing these comic covers reminded me that there's so many stories that haven't been told yet. Then there's villains we haven't even seen like the Hobgoblin, Chameleon, Hydra Man, and others. The fact this game even referenced the comics and showed the history of Spider-Man over the years is something I really appreciated. But anyways, there was a special section where you could look at the costumes you unlocked, pick certain levels to play, and enter cheats. Some of the costumes that were available included additional abilities that would help you in future playthroughs. Some of the suits that you could wear included the Symbiote suit, which would give you unlimited webbing, Spider-Man 2099, which gave you enhanced strength, Captain Universe, which made you invulnerable, gave you enhanced strength and unlimited webbing, and you could also just be Peter Parker as well. If you don't want to unlock everything the normal way, I recommend inputting the cheat codes. There are some pretty neat cheats that you can input to unlock everything in the gallery and all the suits, so it's definitely worth googling these codes and giving them a try. Lastly, the game has a what if mode that keeps the main story but changes some things that happen. Some of these things are character deaths, dialogue, and other things. The amount of extra content this game offers increases its replay value and entices you to try and unlock the costumes and comic book covers if you don't want to use the cheats. Neversoft Spider-Man is the 3D Spider-Man game that was desperately needed at the time. The combination of story, voice acting, music, and content just makes this game the whole package. The love and attention the devs put in this game is apparent in every mission, and really served as the first step towards making Spider-Man the most popular superhero video game character we have today. This game laid the foundation for the sequels we would receive in the future, and I'm so happy I decided to revisit this game so many years later. Did you play Spider-Man 1 for the PS1? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.